All right. Well, I am Gabby. I am a women's life coach. I walk with women to unlearn who they've had to be so they can feel free to be who they want to be authentically. So, part of my job is teaching women every single day how to practice loving themselves. And I felt like this webinar was so important, and it's such an honor to be here with you because when I started my journey, the idea of self-love was such a large topic. It was like this umbrella topic, and everyone was telling me to love myself. And I was like, okay, great. What does that mean? Like, I don't know what this means. And so it just kind of got added onto a list of a whole bunch of things I felt like I wasn't doing a good enough job at. And I had no idea actually how to start loving myself. So it is a huge passion of mine to share as much tangible tips as I can so that self-love feels practical to you. Yeah, so happy to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Yay. I'm so happy to have you too. So maybe let's see. Oh, I love it. Rainy and gray, no more snow though.
Oh,
Yay. Yay.
yay. Yay. I love it.
So let's start with what's the first thing you would suggest as we're going through starting this journey, trying to figure out I, we start life all fresh and happy and
Yeah.
as this cute little chubby baby, and
Mhm.
then it goes downhill from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Then life
And we
lives.
get life happens, we
Yeah.
have experiences that happen, we have
Yeah.
this conditioning that happens,
Yes.
we experience, way people treat us, what
Yeah.
respond to us,
Yeah.
experience that happen, all of this throughout our life, and it just kind of just piles and just makes layers and layers and layers. And then we
Yes.
get to this point and we're like, why can't I just be happy? Why can't I just accept myself and just love myself and just be okay with who I am?
Yes.
And how do we begin? What is your first suggestion
Yes.
for us?
Yeah. Before I give my first kind of tangible practice we could do, I think it's so important for us to remember that self-love is not something we have or we do not have. It's something we practice. Right. And we then have the empowered choice in every moment to practice it or to not practice it. But it is not something you have to have or do not have. There's no destination we're trying to get to. Right. It's just every day. How can I practice self love today? Which makes it so much more digestible than this like attainable goal of like, okay, I'm going to get to self love and then never struggle again. But really, it's just how often can we practice it? So that's like the number one thing I always talk about is just to release this idea of like, I have to find it or, attain it. It's just a practice.
It's almost like a habit. I
Yes.
like you just until it's a
1000%.
habit. You're like,
Yes.
okay, this is the way I
Yeah.
work my day. That's a perfect way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Exactly.
love that.
Exactly. And then when we suggest self love, again, this idea feels like you mentioned, we've gone through so much of life and conditioning and experiences to then suggest, okay, now it's time to love yourself, right? It just feels so far. And so I always recommend that we start with friendship because there is not one woman I know who doesn't know how to be a good friend. Right. And so, if we know how to be a friend for other people, can we reverse that to ourselves? And in a moment of hardship or in a moment of emotion, can I ask myself, okay, if I had a friend that was going through this, how would I show up for them? What would I do for them? And what would I say to them? And that lays out kind of the perfect example of how we can show up for ourselves in a loving way rather than this big kind of overarching idea of self love. Can we start to just be our own friend?
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's a great,
Yeah.
great way to say it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so important. It makes it a little bit easier, right? And
Yeah.
It's like, why do my friends deserve the best of me, but I don't deserve the best of me as well,
Yes.
right? So kind
So
of
that
putting that,
habit, I love that. Yeah.
yeah, just
Okay, now what would I say?
what would I say
And
to them?
turn that and feel that. Say
Yeah,
it to yourself.
exactly.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. And I actually have done that. So
It's so powerful.
it is, it
Yeah.
really is. You're like, oh, wow, that's how it would feel. That's how it
Yeah.
feels
Yeah.
myself. And
Right.
we almost have this, or at least I have had this idea that, well, that's not okay to be nice to yourself. It's not okay to do that. Somebody else has to be that way for me, but I
Right.
can't be that way for me. Yeah,
Right.
and it's almost this wall, or this like barrier that we come, I don't know,
You
conclusion
know,
we come to, well, I can't do that, but somebody else, I'll have to wait for someone else to do that for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
1000%. And I really think that it's because we form this belief that by being nice to ourselves or being kind or loving towards ourselves means that we are going to be putting ourselves above other people.
Mm,
But in reality, what we're doing is we're just putting ourselves on the equal playing field as our people, right?
mm,
Because before, usually we're under where we hold our people. And so what we're suggesting is just to allow ourselves to treat ourselves the same way we treat other people, right? Kind of
yeah.
changes that perspective rather than, oh, I have to see myself as more important. No, just equal too. And that would change a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, the next thing I would suggest is affirmations. Now, as soon as I mention affirmations, I can feel my past self just kind of like, oh, not these again, right? Because this idea of affirmations, when I was just starting my journey, they felt so far from me. Just staring in the mirror and being like, I am enough. I was like, I don't believe this, right? I would just like roll my eyes. I'm like, okay, great, right? But what happens with affirmations, why they are so important is because they create neural pathways, okay, of being kind and loving towards ourselves. And the more we repeat them, the deeper those neural pathways become. And it becomes easier and easier for our brain to access self love and self kindness and compassion. Now, the way that I like to address affirmations, because I know wholeheartedly what it's like to stare in the mirror and say something you totally don't believe, is I like to create a bridge. So, a bridge is something that makes an affirmation more digestible. And so, I like to add, it's possible, to any affirmation I feel far from. So, if it's I'm enough, if I add the bridge, it's possible I'm enough, the defenses of my mind kind of ease. And I'm like, okay, I'll let you have this one. It is possible, right? And through that process, I invite my mind to find the proof. And I invite my mind to go to work to find that maybe this is possible while I deepen into this belief. Kind of,
That's very good.
kind of
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's like, it's almost like the mind will do like one or the other.
Yes.
You say, oh, it's
1000%.
this. It'll be like, no, it's not.
No, it's not. 1000%.
So I was like, no,
Instantly.
no.
Yeah.
But
Mm-mm.
if you can open it a little bit wider, then it's like, no, oh,
Oh,
it can't go right there.
right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like, I
It
can't
has to
deny
go, no,
possibility.
wait a minute. Well, okay. But
Okay.
once you start focusing on one thing,
Mhm.
then the mind is almost, it's like a computer. Our mind is like a computer. So
1000%.
as you focus on something that it can accept as there's something possible, it
Yes.
starts generating that program of, okay, well, let's find it. Where
Yes.
is it? And then
Yep.
it gets stronger and it just builds. Like each
Yes.
time it builds more and more. And so if you utilize that computer we have in
Mhm.
uh almost working in a positive way,
Yes.
what we want, that, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Eventually, right, we can drop the possibility, right?
yes,
Eventually,
the
we're able to get to the place, yeah,
yeah,
where all
the
of a
more
sudden we're
it
like,
will
oh,
add
I don't
to
need it.
that, yeah,
Mhm. We find
uh-huh,
enough proof that all of a sudden we don't need the possibility. Now I can actually believe that I am enough because I've created that neural pathway and repeated it for so long.
Yeah. And that, like, neuroplasticity kind of is what
It's
that,
our friend. We
what
love
that
it.
works. Yeah. So
Yeah.
where it can move, it can be retrained, for so long we're like, nope, there's nothing that can be done. It's just the way it
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
to realize it actually can be changed. There are ways to be able to reprogram this computer we've got.
1,000%.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
when we think about, the way that we feel about ourselves is created by the thoughts we most often think about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And so when we start to introduce these different possibilities, instantly we experience a different feeling in our body surrounding ourselves. And then that just compounds over time as we create these new beliefs. So, like you're saying, right, our brains are malleable, right? And how we relate to ourselves is also malleable with repetition, right? Support, accountability, and these just different ways of maneuvering the mind so that it feels believable for us.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
1,000%.
Perfect. Love it.
So the other thing I would mention, it's another point, another trick with self-love is this sense of affirmations. Again, sometimes even when we add that bridge, okay, it's possible, I'm enough, it can still feel, right? Depending on what we've been through, it can feel a little hard for us to continuously repeat that. So something else I recommend is to introduce a photo of your younger self into your daily practice. So have it on the back of your phone, have it on your mirror, have it somewhere where you can see it. Because 9 times out of 10, when we see a picture of ourselves when we are young, all we want to do is pour affirmations into her. We just want her to be affirmed, like, you are magic, you are enough, right? And so when we say those affirmations, if it's hard for us in this moment to affirm ourselves, we can start by affirming our younger versions, because as we stand here, we stand with every previous version of us that there has been. So affirming our inner child really does that same thing, but also makes it a little bit easier for us to feel self-loving towards ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. That's very good too.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then the last one, this one is so important. So we all have this voice in our head that tells us that we're not enough and we're not doing a good enough job, and that person probably hates us, right? We like to call it the inner critic, right? This inner critic, she is loud and she is proud. She has a lot to say every single day. Okay. So managing the inner critic is really important when it comes to self-love. And first and foremost, it's important to know that the things that she says to us, right, are not us. Right? This inner critic, what she is saying is a collection of conditioning or internalized beliefs or things we have mostly been exposed to in our life, then trying to be repeated to us. So what's so important is, because this inner critic usually adapts when we're very young, we become enmeshed with it. So we can't really recognize that that voice is separate from us, right? And so what's so important is name your inner critic, okay? I say name it to tame it, okay? Name your inner critic, give her a name, right? A name, someone's name, it could be an animal, it could be a character, right? So every time it speaks, because our thoughts are offers, not absolutes, every time we get an offer, right, and it sounds like not nice, we can name, oh, I know what that is. It's separate from me. And then I can choose what I do with it. And so with that inner critic, give it a name. Give it a name and start to separate yourself from the things that your inner critic offers you. And that separation alone gives us some relief.
Very good. Okay. So I have a question. What did
Yes.
you name yours?
I named mine after, well, a past dog of mine who
Okay.
wasn't nice at all. And her name was Popo. And
Oh,
so I named my inner critic Popo. And every time Popo speaks, she is not nice. And I just let her know, hey, it's okay. We don't need that now. But that separation has helped
I
so
love it.
much, right?
Yeah.
Identify outside of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think uh, that awareness, like
Mhm.
starting with the awareness of, oh, there it is.
There it is.
Oh, there. Oh, I can see that. Oh, I can feel that. I can, like, and just,
Mhm.
it's amazing how much how much it flows through everything all day long,
Everything.
all the thoughts, and to be able to keep watching how much she
Yeah.
pops
How
in
much?
so many
Yeah.
subtle ways, and to be able to become aware, more and more aware, of
Yes.
all the tricky little ways,
Yeah.
she pokes
She
her little
comes in.
head in and is like, oh, I can't believe you did that. Oh my gosh,
Yeah. Yeah. You're the
or
worst, right?
yeah, oh yeah, why did you say that to the, or all these little things that just like float through, and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. A
Oh yep,
thousand
I did,
percent.
instead of just like, yep,
Oh,
I did, yep,
yep.
oh well,
Yeah.
oh
We're
well.
okay.
you
Yeah.
know
Oh well, we're
yeah,
okay.
so looking
Yeah.
at that and being able to watch it a little bit more, and then decide how to respond.
Yeah.
And I feel like as women, judgment is such a huge thing. Maybe it's just humans, but I feel like as women, we just, are so naturally inclined to be hard on ourselves,
Yes.
and those judgments come
Mhm.
in so, easily and so
So
quickly.
easily.
And
Yes.
to be able to almost say, yep,
Mhm. Yes.
yes, I am that way. Yes, I
Yes.
did that. Oh
Yeah.
well,
And I'm still
you know
enough. I'm still
it's
lovable. I'm still
okay.
worthy. We're okay. We're
Yeah,
okay. We're safe.
yeah, with
Yeah.
everything. I mean, ultimately, to be able to, no matter what happens, what
Mhm.
you say, do, what someone says or does to you, to just be like, okay,
Yeah.
that's okay,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
okay, and there's
Exactly.
no judgment there. It's just
Exactly.
okay the way I'm okay the way I am. It's okay the way it is.
Yeah.
And be able, it's like you said, it's a practice. It's a just
It's a
getting into the
practice.
habit, almost a game. Make it a
Yeah.
game,
Thousand
and
percent.
being able to watch it and just be like, oh yeah. And when you do judge, go, oh, look what I just did. And it's
Yeah.
okay. Almost
Thousand.
going to the next level of, oh, I did judge myself, and it's okay too. You get
Yes.
that added, like you're saying, self-love of, one more thing I haven't done, that I haven't conquered, that I need to do, or that I haven't done right, and so to
Yeah.
be able to say it's okay too, and watch
Thousand
those
percent.
judgments that just come in,
Come
so
in.
creep in, and just,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah, I
um,
like to speak on, a lot of the time self-compassion, right, is that stepping stone to self-love. And when we break down the word compassion, it actually means to be with. And so, can I just be with myself in this emotion? Can I just be with myself in this hard? Right? Instead of judging it, instead of expectations of what I should do, can I practice compassion by just being with myself in this? And the power in that, like you're speaking of, it creates a home within you, right? A place of okayness that I can always start to reach, that I am my own safe and soft place to land in the midst of everything that happens outside of me, right?
yeah,
And when we speak about this is a practice that you get to, right? We're introducing a lot of these self-love practices, but as we start to do them and we start to be with ourselves and have our own back, we build this place, right?
mhm,
This little place we can always return to. And it is amazing. it is the key to me to everything, is to just have this place that you can return to when no matter what happens outside of you.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. And I think, maybe a step of that is being able to see how compassionate we are to others.
Of course, again, back to that friendship, right? Like,
Yes,
if I
yes.
will
Or
give it to
I do that
them.
for everybody else. Let's
Yes.
turn that and do that for me. How much do I deserve of that? And I actually had that experience one time where, I feel so compassionate towards, others suffering. And
Mhm.
I came to a point where I was in a place of suffering, and I thought, well, I was able to think about how I could give, And I was like, well, how much of that am I deserve to receive? All of it. Like, you deserve every little bit that you've been able to give. And
Oh,
being able to turn that around and be able to receive that as well.
yeah,
And it's a game changer. It shifts so much when you can say, hey, I'm able and deserving of all this compassion as well. And
1000%.
allow that for yourself too,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
whatever's happening, and wherever you are
yeah,
in your journey, and in life, and what's happening and
yeah,
happened.
and
So
happened.
be able
Yeah.
to have that
Yeah, it's that
source.
same, like that idea, we truly believe we're going to put ourselves above others if we give ourselves compassion, right?
And somehow that's not okay to
Right. To
allow
the
ourselves to be there too.
Yes, it's that same
Yeah.
as, right? If I give it, I also have to be receiving it from
It's almost like
myself.
an all or none. And
Yes.
that's a mind thing too, where
Mhm.
it's an all or none, or me
Yeah,
or them,
near
this
them.
yes or no.
Yeah.
And there's just this, it can only be two options.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and opening up to realize it can be all, it can
It
be
can be.
both. We can all be there. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be one or the other, give or
Nope.
take.
Nope.
There's enough for everybody, all right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yes. And if you
Yeah.
think about it, if I keep myself below my people, how can I ever fully show up for them from this down below?
Yes.
Like I can't get there to show up for them in the ways that they need, that they truly need, right? I would have to be equal to them to be able to show up for them. And so again,
Yes.
like how am I filling my own cup? How am I taking time for these practices to unlearn all of these things? It's so important to understand that when we start practicing self-love, it's a rebellion. Right? Like it's a rebellion
It is
against, a lot of social
everything.
structures, yes, and conditioning. And so it's not hard because you're doing it wrong. It's hard because you're doing it right.
It
Right. And
is.
can we keep ourselves dedicated to the rebellion of loving ourselves amongst all of the conditioning that suggests otherwise, all of the conditioning that is constantly telling us we aren't enough? Where
Yeah.
is your sacred space in your house or somewhere you can go that is just between you and you to remind yourself that, like, hey, it's me and you, like, we got this, I'm enough, I love you, I'll always have your back,
Mhm.
right? And having that space and creating that space, I believe forever that that's a rebellion and one
Yeah.
worth taking on.
Literally, I don't think there's any harder thing.
There's
I,
not.
really.
It's,
I
there
mean,
is not.
as I've like looked, and my 51 years of being here,
Yeah.
it's like I've gone through a lot, but
Yes,
being able to actually do this is the hardest
it is. It
thing,
is.
because
Yes.
it's so ingrained in us, and such a lifelong unlearning
Unlearning. Yep.
of,
Deconstructing.
of almost
Mhm.
everything, almost
Thousand
everything
percent.
that we've learned. And
Yes.
so it's layer by layer by layer,
Mhm.
situation by situation, just being able to undo it, let
Yeah.
go of that, and say, well, I used to believe this about me, but
Mhm.
I'm not going to anymore. You know,
1000%.
I thought this was true about myself, and I'm going to choose to change my mind.
Yes. And
you
what you
know?
said there is so important. It's choose, right? And so unlearning it,
Mhm.
and all of this does seem hard and it seems big, but what it comes down to is daily small choices. Right?
Mhm.
How am I
Mhm.
daily, again, choosing to practice self love? When I find myself in a moment where I'm lost in maybe negative self talk, can I pause and just return myself? Hey, okay, whoa, 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 we're okay. We're doing
Stop.
enough. We're enough. We got this. It's going to be okay. Right? Can I just practice it? And that's what compounds over time, is those small choices to practice self-love. So yes, it's hard and it is a big feat for our whole lives, right? To continue to unlearn all of this. However, instantly, if you choose the softness of practicing this, it will feel different in your body.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the power. It's like, yes, it's all long, but then with one thought I introduce of compassion or kindness, it's relief in my body for that
Totally
moment.
shifts it. right in that
Totally
moment.
shifts it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the thing I think for me that was for the first part, like it's so constant and just something that's there. Like you're
Yeah.
saying, you're identified with all of that
Mhm.
to be able to think about, okay, how am I feeling right now?
Yeah.
And watch how you feel. Like just check in
Mhm.
throughout the day. And almost the first rule of the game is, how am I feeling?
Yeah.
And so if you can get into that game, that start the game, the habit, and see it as a game of, okay, how am I feeling?
Yeah.
Okay, how am I feeling now? And just
Yes.
keep checking in and see,
Yeah.
okay, where am I at? How am I, and and just keep becoming aware. And
Yeah.
then once you become aware of that, you can see, okay, I am not feeling peace. I'm not feeling happy.
Yeah.
Okay, what am I thinking? Because there's
Mhm.
something that I'm choosing to focus on in my thoughts that's
Yeah.
coming through
Yeah.
that is not true. Really, that's what it
100%.
is if I'm not feeling joy and peace and love,
Mhm.
it's because I'm believing something that's not true. Ultimately,
Yes.
that ultimately is not true. And I need to look at it and get a bigger picture and unlearn a
Mhm.
bunch of,
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
and see the big picture, the full truth of
Yeah.
what I am, what's real,
Mhm.
um, and what's happening,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. And like you said, that check-in point and something I talk to all my clients about is like checking in the morning of like, how am I? What do I need? Because we think about loving or caring somebody else. We could never do that without knowing how they are. Right? Can we
Right.
imagine loving somebody without ever asking how they are? Like, I
Yeah.
love you, but I don't want to know how you're doing. Right? It's like the profound nature of just waking up to be like, hey, how am I and what do I need? Hey, and how can I honor that in a small way throughout this day?
Yes.
Hey, and so
Uh-huh.
small again when we go back to mirroring how we show up for other people, right? What
Yes.
do I need to know in order to love them best?
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. So I
Profound.
love that. I love it. Those are
So good.
perfect and wonderful for being able to just get
Yeah.
that journey going and move
Yes.
forward. And
Yep.
it's a journey. It's an always journey.
Always
It
journey.
won't end. There's
No.
always going to be more and more we can receive, but the more as we start, the happier we can be, the more fulfilled we'll feel, the more loving, the more joyful. And
Mhm.
one thing that I love is realizing unless I am happy, I can't
Mhm.
make others happy.
No. No.
Only when I am happy and I
Mhm.
am loving myself and accepting myself can I do that for anybody else.
1000%.
So I have to do it first.
Yep.
What is criticizing myself doing for anybody?
Mhm.
I mean, even if you're not doing it for yourself, being able to do it for those around you so that you can show up for them if
Yep.
that's where we can begin,
Yep.
it
Again.
is a big huge start of, okay, let me do this so that I can be able to help others to be there. You want your children, your partner, your neighbors, friends, family to be happy. You want
Yes.
them to be happy.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
you can make yourself happy, you can help them to be happy. But if you can't,
Mhm.
you really honestly can't help them.
Yeah.
And in fact will pull them to wherever you're at.
Right.
So
It's not.
as you lift yourself, they now
Mhm.
naturally will be lifted because you can do it for them because
1000.
you're there, you know?
Yeah. 1000.
So a world with happy people will just make a happy world. But unless
Mhm.
we're there, it,
Yeah.
we can't make that around us.
Yeah.
So
1000%.
yeah.
1000%. So necessary,
Yeah.
right? For everything we want. It's a foundation. Self-love and the self-compassion, self-kindness, it's the foundation. I like to say that it's the net underneath us walking the tightrope of life. It's like what's going to catch us when we naturally do fall, right? Life is
Yeah.
hard. Life
It's gonna
lifes. We're
happen.
taking risks, right? But what catches us? right? It's that sense of embodied enoughness and self-love and compassion. Like, where do I fall? What is my soft place to land? And can I become that for myself so that I can keep getting back up and getting on that tightrope?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Wonderful.